I'm sort of dreading making this video today because I know September was a pretty spendy month for me, but in the spirit of transparency, at the end of the month, you guys always get to see how much money I spend throughout the month. So in this video, that's exactly what we're doing. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Erin. I'm a 25-year-old living in Nashville that shares a lot about her finances on the internet, including in these videos. At the end of every month, I make a video like this where we track all of my spending from the month prior. We see exactly how much I spent this month, and then we use that information to budget and create a plan moving forward for the next month. I have a ton of content on my channel all about budgeting, saving, investing, my net worth, all of that, so you can definitely check that out. But I would say these are my most popular videos, and rightfully so. These are my favorite videos to film because this end of month money routine is super important to keep me on track and keep me knowing exactly where my money's going. So like I said in this video, what we're going to be doing is first tracking all of my expenses for the entire month of September. I do this throughout the month. Once a week, I go into my budget template and I track all of my spending to kind of keep up with it throughout the month. But I actually deleted all of the September data so that we could do it together in this video because I think it's super helpful to see like how I'm doing that on a monthly basis. So we'll track all of my expenses. We'll get the total for how much I spent in September, and a spoiler, again, this was a pretty spendy month, but then we'll use that information to kind of like make any tweaks to my budget moving forward and create a plan for the month of October. That is sort of the bulk of my end of month money routine, but then outside of that, I check in with all of my accounts. So we'll check in with all of the accounts that make up my net worth, my savings, my investments. So with that, let's get right into it. Here we are in my budget template. This is the pink Google Sheets version. This is the version that I use, but this template, when you purchase it, it comes in both pink and blue in both Google Sheets and Excel, but the Google Sheets one is just the one that I prefer, so that's what we're using. This is the monthly budget planner tab, which is where we map out our budget, and we'll do that in the second half of this video, but I'm going to go over to the September tab, which is where we're going to be tracking our spending for the month of September. Again, I typically come in here once a week and just update all of my transactions from the week prior, so I'm doing it on a weekly basis and kind of keeping up with it. But I wanted to do an entire month's worth of transactions in this video to give you guys a feel for like kind of what that process looks like, because I know that 99% of you are not keeping up with your transactions on a weekly basis. I definitely hear from a lot of people like, oh, I want to start tracking my spending, but I don't know exactly what point I should start at. Like, do I wait for the first of the month? And to that, I say that you can start on literally whatever day you want to get started on, because you can retroactively track your spending. For example, if you want to start a diet, you can't retroactively start a diet because your eating choices were your eating choices a couple days ago. But if it's the 22nd of a month, you don't have to wait until the first of the month to start in the next month. You can pull up a template like this, go back to your transactions and your credit card statement, your bank account statement, and track your spending from the 1st to the 22nd that it is today. I feel like tracking all of your transactions for an entire month really intimidates people, and it's not intimidating literally at all. We're gonna do it in this video and it's not going to take very long, so let's get into it. To do this, you're going to need your bank account transactions and then your credit card transactions, really just wherever you spend money. So I have one checking account that money flows in and out of, and then I have 3 credit cards that I primarily spend on. This process is obviously easier if you're not spending on multiple cards, like if you only have maybe one card that you spend on, or if all of your transactions come out of your debit account. It's obviously going to make this process easier, but again, we're going to walk through it having one checking account and 3 credit cards that we need to track. We're starting with my checking account, so I just have my checking account app here. And literally all I'm doing is I'm in my recent transactions, and any transaction that happened in the month of September is getting logged into this spending tracker. One thing to note on this template is the date column. The date needs to be filled out in order for the transactions to populate into the net worth tracker and the annual dashboard. But if you don't care about the exact date that you spent the money, I usually just go in and write like the first of the month for every transaction. So I'll go like 9/1/2024. 9/1/2024, and drag this down so that I don't manually have to write a date in. Literally the only transactions that I have coming out of my bank account are my salary, so money is flowing in from my direct deposit, and then I have $26 worth of subscriptions coming from my bank account. Next is my first credit card. It's my Capital One Venture X card. I do a lot of my spending on my Venture X card. I do almost all of my shopping spend on my Venture X, so this is where it kind of gets interesting. Again, in my recent transactions, any transaction on here is going into my September spending tracker. Those are all the transactions for my Capital One Venture X card, and now we're moving on to my Built Rewards card. This is the card that I pay my rent on, and I have a lot of like dining expenses that go onto my Built card as well. And then the last card is my HYSA I preferred card, so we're going to get the remaining of my transactions into the spending tracker. Okay, and now that all of my transactions are in the spending tracker, this is the fun part. We get to kind of look at like, okay, what did I budget for the month, and then what did I actually spend for the month of September? It's funny because at the beginning of this video, I was like, oh, I know that this is like a super spendy month, so I'm kind of dreading this. But at the end of this process, I always just like feel better, even if the numbers are higher. The numbers in some of the categories are a little bit higher than what I budgeted for, but it's nothing crazy. It's not like earth shattering or anything. So regardless, it always makes me like have less anxiety that I just like know where my money went and all of my transactions are accounted for. First, let's look at this little cash flow summary box here. This gives us like a good overview of like, what did I make? What did I spend? And what's the difference? For the income, the reason why there's such a spread between the budgeted and the actual is because I always wait until the end of the month to take my monthly distribution from my business. So this $46.05 is the amount that like from my payroll gets deposited into my checking account on the first of every month. But then at the end of the month, I get to take what's called a distribution from my business. And essentially I just look at how much money I made that month, what were my business expenses, and I decide how much I want to transfer into my personal account as a distribution. My standard is $3,000 a month. And honestly, that's like what I'm going to take this month as well, just kind of looking at the numbers. So at the end of this process, as I'm transferring money to my savings, my investments, I also take my monthly distribution. My needs came in a little bit under budget, and then my wants were over budget, and we can walk through exactly what those transactions were. And then again, the savings and investments, I leave at zero until the end of the month, which is what we're gonna do in this video. The needs and the wants summary is what's going to show you like a better breakdown of what you budgeted versus what you actually spent in the different categories. And then this little progress bar here will show you if you came under or over budget. So the categories that I went over budget in the needs were groceries and then pet insurance. My pet insurance just went up in price, so I need to adjust my budget accordingly. That's not a big deal. Groceries, I'm fine with that. If I spend under $400, that's not a big deal. I set a grocery budget, but that's kind of one of those things that like I prioritize eating healthy, and as long as I'm not going crazy with my groceries, as long as I'm not spending like $500 or $600 a month on groceries, then I'm not super upset about it. But then the ones, this is where things get interesting. The only category here that I like really want to point out is my shopping. If you've been following me, or maybe I said this in my September money reset video, I allocated a lot of money towards shopping this month that isn't necessarily reflected in this budget because I'm going through the process currently of working with a stylist and rebuilding my wardrobe. I know I've been talking a lot about this on my TikTok and my Instagram account, but essentially in the month of September, I hired a stylist to go through my closet, help me build outfits with the things that I already have, but then help me identify the gaps in my wardrobe and go shopping for those gaps. So not only did I plan to spend the $500 a month that I typically spend shopping, but I also plan to use the money that was in my fun money sinking fund, which when we get to the savings and the investments portion, we'll talk about my fun money sinking fund. But essentially I put a little bit of money away every single month in a sinking fund called Fun Money, which I save that money for reasons like this. When I have something fun that I want to spend my money on and splurge, I have the money sitting there so I don't feel guilty about it. So I had just under $1,000 sitting in my Fun Money sinking fund, and then the $500 here, I wanted to use that combined like $1,500 to really invest in this process of working with a stylist. And I only spent $1,015 of that, which is still a lot of money. I did a lot of shopping this month, but this process has been really great so far and we're not finished yet. So I'm sure I will spend the rest of it in the month of October. What's great about this process of manually tracking your spending is when you go over in a budget category or even like any of your budget categories, you can see the transactions that made you go over budget. So when I'm looking here and I'm like, oh, I spent $1,000 shopping, I can come in here and be like, okay, why did I spend $1,000 shopping? What were those individual transactions? And honestly, it wasn't really that bad. I spent $581 at Nordstrom. That was the session of me going shopping with my stylist. And I got a lot of really great stuff during that session, so not upset about that. I spent $238 on birthday presents for my nieces. I have 5 nieces and I wanted to get them presents that were kind of like Nashville. So I went to a store downtown and bought them like shirts and sweatshirts and stuff like that. The other category that I went over budget was household and pet items. This is all one transaction. I went to Home Goods and I spent $257 on fall decor for my apartment. I honestly just wanted it for fall. I wanted to kind of like tone down the pink. My apartment, if you watched my Nashville apartment tour, was like so girly and pink and green, and I just wanted to kind of like take some of those pink accents out and replace it with like these orange pillows and things like that. The next part of this is checking in on my sinking funds or my savings. As you can see in my spending tracker here that the savings and the investments portions are blank. I have my sinking funds in a completely separate institution, so I typically like save my savings and my investments for last in this process. but I already have saved money for the month because on the first of every month I have auto transfers set to go from my checking to my SoFi savings account where I have my sinking funds. So money automatically routes from my main checking account into my SoFi savings, which is a high yield savings account, and then it automatically goes into the individual sinking funds, which I can show you. So if you go into banking here, this is where I have my savings account. So if you click on savings, then this is what my savings account looks like. And as you can see, I have these little vaults here, which are my sinking funds. So this is working for me behind the scenes. I don't have to remember to manually come in here and save for all of my different savings goals. It does it automatically. I really like having this set up at a different institution than my main checking account, my main credit card, because it honestly is just like a set it and forget it type of thing. SoFi makes it super easy to set up these little vaults. So I know that all of the money being saved is going to a very specific purpose. It all has a purpose in my savings account. The 4 vaults that I have currently are fun money, holidays, pet fund, and travel. So every single month, a little bit of money is going into each of these accounts to save for these different goals. My fun money sinking fund is what I'm going to be pulling from to pay for all of the shopping that I'm doing. So I'll probably be draining most of this $900. Holidays, the holidays are coming up, so I want to have money to pay for Christmas presents and all of that. Pet fund, when I travel and I have to pay for a pet sitter, that money comes directly out of here. And then travel, when I go to take a trip, I know where the money's coming from, so I pull the money out of here instead of out of my checking account. There's nothing really to do in the savings section here because again, this is automated, but I wanted to show you guys what this looks like. This is just your quick little reminder that if you are saving money, it should be in a high yield savings account and your money should be saved for a specific purpose. You could be saving for your individual sinking funds like this, saving for your emergency fund. I love that SoFi lets you organize it into these little vaults. You could add a vault for an emergency fund if you wanted to, but you can really keep things organized. If you are interested in setting up your high yield savings account with SoFi, I have a link in the description of this video. And then last, to wrap up my September spending before we move into my October budget, we're just gonna check in on my investments, and at the end of the month is also when I go in and physically place an investment. My goal right now outside of my retirement investments is to invest at least $1,000 a month into my taxable brokerage account. That's not set up automatically because $1,000 to me is a minimum. If I can do more than that, I will do more than that. So I like to do it manually just to kind of like look at my numbers at the end of the month and see how much I can afford to invest. So here's my overall investment portfolio. I'm viewing this in the SoFi app as well. SoFi has kind of like a net worth tracker, so you can pull in all of your accounts and see what your account balances are. So I have a solo 401k, I have my taxable brokerage account here, I have a Roth IRA, and then I also have an old 401k at a previous employer. The only 2 accounts that I'm contributing to right now are my solo 401k and my taxable brokerage account. We're gonna place that investment here. So I pulled up my checking account to see how much money I have in my checking to invest. And I am pretty cash heavy right now, but I know I need to pay off my credit card, so I'm not going to like totally wipe this. But I have $10,600 in my checking account right now, so I think we're going to invest $2,000. I wanna leave money in here to pay off my credit cards. I always pay them off in full every single month, but I'm going to invest $2,000, so I'll show you how I do that. I'm going to pull up my Charles Schwab account and transfer funds from my Capital One account to my brokerage account, $2,000, continue. Now that the money is in there, we're going to search for the ticker symbols of the investments that we want to purchase. And as you can see, when I clicked search, the 2 investments that I always invest in automatically come up. So VT and VTI, I usually invest in a mix of both, but usually I just like rotate every single month. I generally keep around the same of each of these investments. One's a US stock market ETF and one's a global stock market ETF. Let's do VT. Buy from my brokerage account. I want to buy, I think 18 of these. Market. So the market is already closed, so I can't purchase this investment right now, but I deposited the cash and tomorrow I'll just come and click buy and purchase $2,000 of shares of this ETF. And now that we've wrapped up September, we tracked all of our spending, we checked in with our savings, our investments, and we also checked in with our checking account balances just to make sure we know exactly what's going on with our money. Now it's time to look forward into the next month. So in this case, in the month of October, and kind of make a plan for our money or budget our money moving forward. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I don't completely create an entire new budget for the next month. I think that's kind of a waste of time. Generally speaking, your budget doesn't change, or at least your budget categories don't change. So once a month, I just come in here and I update the numbers as necessary for what my month looks like moving moving forward. How I do this is I kind of just like think ahead for what I realistically have coming up the next month. Like, am I taking a trip? Am I traveling at all? Am I going to an event? Do I have to buy a present for someone? If I have any big events coming up, then that sort of like helps me know how much I should budget. October is an interesting month for me because I'm going to be spending the first 7 days of October in Pittsburgh, so I won't be in Nashville. I'll be going back and forth from my parents' house and then Pittsburgh, so I feel like my expenses are going to be kind of a lot with that. I feel like I'm going to be like eating out more than usual and things like that, and we're also planning on going to a Steelers game when I'm in Pittsburgh, and those tickets are probably going to be like $300. So with that, I'm going to increase my food and drink budget to $500. And I'm going to decrease my shopping budget to, let's say, $400. Fitness, I still spend $170 a month on fitness between my gym membership and ClassPass. Household and pet, $150 is probably good. Miscellaneous ones. And then here's where I can make some edits. I probably won't save into my fun money sinking fund this month because I pulled a lot for my stylist. And then also if I'm going to be spending $300 on a Steelers ticket, I won't be having that money to put into my fun money. So I'll probably move this to miscellaneous ones. Actually, we'll just leave this as $100, and then this amount left will reflect the $300 that I'm gonna spend on a ticket. I increased my brokerage account to $1,500 just because my budget allowed for it. I do typically invest at least $1,500 a month into my brokerage account, so I figured that that number was applicable there. And then other than that, I think that looks good for October. There weren't like too many changes there. I think $350 is still good for groceries, $100 for gas. I'm driving to Pittsburgh, so I'll probably spend more than that. And then yeah, other than that, nothing else is really changing for October, but that's why I don't create an entire new budget, because it's really easy to just tweak the numbers in here. And everyone always asks me like, well, if you change the numbers for October, won't that also change your budget for September? And to that, I always tell people, once the month is over, it literally does not matter what you budgeted for in like July. Like the only thing that matters for the month of June, July, August, all of the months prior is what actually happened. How much did you actually make? How much did you actually spend? Your budget is just a plan. So your budget is forward thinking, and once it's in the past, not the future, a budget does literally nothing. So feel free to come in here and make tweaks as necessary to your budget. I make tweaks to this all the time, and it literally does not matter. The only thing that matters is the actual numbers after the month is over. And I think that brings us to the end of today's video. This was a quick one, but I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys an update on how much money I spent in September and what my budget looks like for the month of October. As we're going into fall and going into the holiday season, this is a really overwhelming time for a lot of people when it comes to their money. So I feel like now is actually the best time to start going through these weekly or monthly money routines to really set yourself up for success going into the new year. If you want to get started doing this, I do have my template that I used in this video in the description of this video. Definitely check that out. This template has been downloaded by over 20,000 of you, which is so insane to me. I've been using it for 3 years now, and it has helped me so much just staying on track with my finances. So with that, if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you liked and subscribed. It would mean the world to me, and thank you for following along.